My husband sent me a message from Hawaii saying, I'm in Hawaii with my 22-year-old lover. The divorce papers are on their way, and I've already emptied our joint account of $4 million. I couldn't help but laugh and responded by sending my bank statement, which showed a credit of $4 million. Because the account he emptied? Actually, the message arrived while I was serving customers in my boutique. I'm leaving you and going to Mexico City with my 21-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. My hand didn't even tremble while I read it. My voice remained steady while I helped Ms. Teresa choose a scarf. The only sign that my husband, with whom I had been for 13 years, had just broken up with me via text message, was a slight narrowing of my eyes. I waited until Ms. Teresa left with her purchase wrapped in our traditional silver paper, and only then typed my response. Good luck. My name is Carla, I'm 39 years old, and today I received the coldest goodbye of my life. But while Armando probably felt like the king of drama, thinking I would be in tears over the betrayal, I simply calmly closed my boutique for the day. The signs had all been there for months. The late nights at work that didn't match his salary. The new passwords on his phone. Out of nowhere. The way he started going to the gym every day. Buying new clothes. Trying to look younger. I paused the video to say that part 2 is on the Juan Reddit channel. Let's go back to my story 4 months ago. I found a receipt from a fancy restaurant for 2 people. On the very night he said he was working overtime. That same day, I opened a new account at another bank. A week later, when he came up with the idea of joining our money to make things easier, I just smiled and said, sure. Meanwhile, I was transferring my personal savings to this new account. The joint account he just emptied had only enough not to raise suspicion. About 3 months of regular deposits. The rest, safely in my account, along with a detailed dossier of each of his suspicious movements over the past year. My cell phone vibrated again. Don't even think about begging. Lauren and I are leaving tomorrow. I'll send someone to pick up my things later. Lauren, the new receptionist, at his office. I met her at the company's end-of-year party. I saw how she laughed at Armando's jokes, how she touched his arm thinking no one was watching. Young enough to be his daughter. She responded. Let him think he won the first round. Another message. From Armando. In Mexico City. Let him enjoy the little show while he can. Another smart decision. Armando was so different back then. Before the midlife crisis transformed him into a walking meme. Today he wears shirts too tight for his already somewhat soft body. He desperately tries to fit in with younger colleagues at work. Using slang that sounds ridiculous coming from a 46-year-old man. The phone kept vibrating. More messages. Each one more arrogant than the last. I've been planning this for months. Lauren understands me like you never could. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll even find someone your own age. I already told my family. They support me. We grew apart. It's really no one's fault. I took screenshots of all the messages and saved them in my evidence folder. I let him keep talking. My lawyer is going to love this material. The confession that he planned everything. That foolish pride in having emptied our account. But it was the last message that really caught my attention. By the way, I used our joint card to pay for our tickets. And the hotel? Consider it my parting gift. Oh, perfect. I called the bank right away. Mrs. Gutierrez speaking. I need to report fraud and cancel a card immediately. Of course, ma'am. Can you tell me which charges? 3 first-class tickets to New York purchased today. A stay at the Royal Palm Hotel. And I also want to remove my husband as an authorized user. Do you have proof of the fraud? Yes. I have text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to book a trip with his lover after emptying our account. I can forward them. The attendant maintained a professional tone, but you could hear a hint of satisfaction in her voice when she confirmed the cancellation of the purchases. The next day, Armando and Lauren would arrive at the airport only to discover that the tickets were worthless. The hotel reservation, canceled. My phone vibrated again. Don't worry about the house. Worry. You can stay there until you find a smaller place. I laughed out loud. Did he really think he had any right to my grandmother's house? Had his ego inflated so much that he forgot whose name was on the deed? I know the store means a lot to you. We can reach a fair agreement for your part. My part of my store? The one that I created, that I funded while he complained about my overtime hours and said it was just a hobby. I poured myself a glass of wine. The one I had been saving for a special occasion. And this certainly counted. Tomorrow, Armando would get a lesson about property laws and separate assets. But tonight, I just wanted to enjoy the silence and start planning my next chapter. The next morning, my phone started popping with angry messages. What the hell did you do with the card? The airline won't let us board. The hotel canceled the reservation. Answer me. I put my phone on silent and went straight to my boutique. I arrived, as always, 15 minutes before opening. I turned on the lights, started the coffee maker, opened the display windows, and took a deep breath. I was calm, serene even, considering that my now ex-husband thought he had left me devastated. It was curious. He really believed I wouldn't see this coming. That I, Carla, with whom he had lived for 13 years, would swallow it all silently. Idiot. As soon as I prepared my coffee, I sent a short message to the person I knew would change the course of this story. Dr. Beatriz Vasconcelos, attorney specializing in property law, cold, practical, surgical. The answer came in 3 minutes. Bring everything. This afternoon. Without fail. I closed the boutique early. I put in my bag the black folder that I had been discreetly feeding for months. Every screenshot, every statement, every suspicious note, every card receipt that didn't match what he said he was doing. I had everything, and most importantly, he had left evidence of his own free will. I arrived at Dr. Beatriz's office with my head held high. She didn't smile, didn't praise my courage. She just took the folder, read in silence, and at the end said, "This here is a massacre." I signed the power of attorney. Why? I handed everything over, and I made it clear. I don't want a settlement. I want justice, and I want him to taste his own poison, drop by drop. 3 days later, Armando was officially notified. Litigious divorce, allegations of infidelity, misuse of common assets, fraud, abandonment of home, all with evidence. He responded as I expected, trying to play the victim. You're overreacting. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Lauren manipulated me. I was confused. We could resolve this peacefully. Resolved? Peacefully? After a message in the middle of my workday saying he emptied the account and went to Hawaii with his mistress? It was at that moment that I understood. The man had no shame, let alone character. 2 weeks later, Armando had his first real surprise. He discovered that the house he said he would let me stay in until I found something smaller was in my grandmother's name. And more, left to me in a will with a clause of intransferability and exclusive use. The second surprise came at the notary's office when he tried to question the boutique. He claimed that he helped, that he packed boxes, that he gave suggestions. Beatriz simply opened the records. Business registration in my name, lease agreement in my name, invoices, bank registrations, accounting, taxes paid, everything, absolutely everything in my name. You are not listed as a partner, sir. There is no contractual or employment relationship. But I helped, he insisted, his voice already faltering. Informal help does not constitute property rights, Mr. Armando, Beatriz replied, as dry as a razor. He lost it. He hit the table, spoke loudly, tried to accuse me of being calculating, that I was destroying his life out of revenge. And for the first time, I looked him in the eyes and responded, "Revenge is sending a message from Hawaii saying you're with a 22-year-old girl after stealing the joint account. What I'm doing is called justice. And the best part? With class." He got up and left, slamming the door. The last image I had was of him outside, in the hallway, yelling on his cell phone, probably trying to convince someone that he was the victim. Turns out, this time, no one was on his side. And me? I was just beginning to return everything he tried to take from me. The most interesting part of well-executed revenge is the desperation that comes afterward. And that's exactly what I watched, from the best seat in the house in the days that followed. Armando couldn't bear the idea of losing control of the narrative. After all, for him, it was always more important to seem right than to be right. So, like the good narcissist that he is, he went to where he feels most powerful, the internet. Suddenly, posts appeared on Facebook with our old photos, captioned with phrases like, 13 years thrown away, and I no longer recognize the woman I married. On Instagram, he opened a new public profile with a bio that said, "Father, man of principles, victim of a broken heart." He just forgot to put a donation link in the bio. He started writing dramatic long posts, claiming to be emotionally betrayed, insinuating that I was cold, manipulative, and that I left him emotionally vulnerable, enough to fall into Lauren's arms, the young soul who gave him attention. He shared all this in city groups. Yes, groups. Those like Local Commerce, Neighbors of Santa Beatriz, even Tips for Women's Fashion and Aesthetics. This last one, an absolute disaster, considering it was administered by one of my most loyal customers. Oh, and she read everything. out loud, in a video. She made a point of saying that she had been shopping at my boutique for 8 years, that she knew my marriage inside and out, and that Armando never was good for anything except getting in the way. The video went viral. Others began to comment. Customers started posting photos shopping at the boutique with captions like "valuing strong women" or "buy from someone who had the courage to start over." My store began to receive more messages than ever. Appointments, compliments, orders. And me? I didn't need to say a word. Armando's sandcastle began to crumble. Lauren, who at first seemed so enchanted with the mature and well-traveled man, didn't take long to feel the weight of public shame. She was exposed in the comments, identified in the screenshots, criticized by colleagues, and then disappeared. Literally. One fine day, Armando posted a photo alone with the caption, "Starting over." The same day, her Instagram profile was deleted. Sources, and by sources I mean a friend who works at the same company, told me that Lauren requested a transfer to another department and blocked Armando on everything. He was left without his lover, without reputation, and worse, without money. His cards started getting declined. He tried to fill up his car and the debit was denied. He tried to have lunch at a restaurant and had to leave his cell phone as collateral while he ran to the nearest bank. Of course, he didn't know that all joint accounts and bank authorizations had been deactivated. Beatrice took care of that personally, and all the new passwords were safe. He sent me furious messages. "You left me with nothing. This is financial abuse. You will pay me for every humiliation." I read them, took a deep breath, and answered with a single phrase. "What's yours is safe. What was mine, you no longer touch." He disappeared for a few days, and I thought maybe he had learned his lesson. But Armando is the type who prefers embarrassment to dignity, and the embarrassment was just beginning. And then came the day of the hearing. I woke up early, calmly. I gave myself the right to prepare my own breakfast in silence with the playlist I liked, and without anyone complaining that the smell of my coffee was too strong, as Armando did every morning, as if the smell was the problem, and not him. I chose my outfit with the same care as someone putting on armor. A white blazer, a satin blouse underneath, and my grandmother's bracelet, the only thing inherited from her besides the house, and strength. I arrived at the courthouse 15 minutes early, accompanied by Dr. Beatrice, who carried the folder of documents like someone holding the sword of justice. My posture was calm, my expression firm. No heavy makeup, nothing flashy. Just the image of a woman who knew very well who she was, and who had nothing to hide. On the other side of the hallway, there he was, Armando, in a poorly fitted dark suit, deep circles under his eyes, and a lost look. He was thinner, more worn out, more ridiculous. He had that defeated air of someone who realized too late that he lost a war that he himself declared. He tried to stare at me. I smiled politely and nodded with a slight wave. He lowered his eyes. The hearing room was full. Some of my friends made a point of being present. 2 former clients who had also gone through similar divorces came as character witnesses. And of course, he brought 2 bar friends, as if that had any legal weight. The judge was a mature man with a tired and objective expression. He wasn't there for a show, nor for drama, and I was exactly prepared for that. Armando started speaking. He played the victim, cried, forced, said I was cold, that the marriage was already dead, that I emotionally ignored him, and that he had fallen into temptation out of neediness. A pathetic, empty narrative, just like the ones he posted on social media. But what he didn't expect was that each allegation would be dismantled, item by item, with evidence. When Beatrice opened the folder and began to show the screenshots, statements, receipts, bank records, and the messages where he admitted planning everything with his mistress, the room fell into absolute silence. We showed that the joint account had been deliberately emptied. We showed that he used the card after abandonment, that he tried to simulate good faith after already setting up the scam. And the judge interrupted his defense with a comment that I still cherish today. "Mr. Armando, you were not a victim of emotional coldness. You were the perpetrator of a clear plan of betrayal, fraud, and attempted patrimonial subversion, and that has consequences." When the sentence was read, my shoulders relaxed for the first time in months. Divorce granted with fault attributed to him. No rights to the house, no rights to the store, compensation for moral damages and misuse of assets, compensatory alimony for the duration of the marriage, court costs, On him. I left the room with my head held high. Outside, people applauded me, literally. My friends, clients, some women I didn't even know, but who knew the story, gathered in the hallway and applauded as if I had won a collective battle. And in a way, I had. Armando came out a few minutes later, alone, with short steps, eyes on the ground. The local press wasn't there, but I swear, if someone had taken a picture, it would have been the cover with the headline, "Here lies the pride of a coward." I got into Dr. Beatrice's car and let out such a deep sigh that even she smiled. "Is it over?" I asked. She shrugged, professional as always. "Legally, yes, but the humiliation, that's just beginning for him. And me? I was officially free." Over time, my life sorted itself out in a way that I wouldn't have imagined even in my best days. The boutique grew. I partnered with local designers. We launched our own line of accessories. I was invited to give a lecture on female entrepreneurship at a university. All this while the word Armando was, little by little, losing any weight in my memory. Until that day at the mall. I had gone to buy a birthday present for my neighbor's daughter. I walked into one of those small men's clothing stores, barely looking at the name, and came face to face with him. Armando. Behind the counter, with a badge hanging on his chest, a poorly ironed dress shirt, and a look so dim that it took him a few seconds to recognize me. When he did, he froze. For a moment, I thought he was going to pretend he didn't see me. But Armando never knew how to lose with dignity. So he smiled awkwardly and said, "Carla." I looked at him like someone looking at a shadow from the past. "Armando, what a surprise." I replied in a neutral tone, almost sympathetic. "Almost." "You look good," he said, as if asking permission to continue. "I'm great. And you? Working here?" He nodded, clearly embarrassed. "Yeah, I'm trying to start over. Things haven't been easy after everything." I feigned empathy. I fidgeted with a random hanger just to avoid maintaining eye contact for too long. "Good that you're trying, Armando. Starting over is important. Everyone deserves a second chance. For themselves, right?" I said with a delicate smile that hid the blade behind the phrase. He seemed to swallow hard. I wanted to apologize. Really, I was an idiot, a complete imbecile. I lost myself. "I know," I replied. Just like that. No flourish. He hesitated. "I don't expect anything, but if someday you want to talk, have a coffee." I gave a short laugh, without sarcasm, just tiredness. "Armando, you still think we're a misplaced comma that can be edited, but we were a closed chapter, and a shameful chapter. By the way," he remained silent. The store was empty. The air conditioner made an uncomfortable buzz. For a moment, I even felt sorry for him. But it was fleeting, because when you survive an emotional earthquake, the last thing you feel when seeing the epicenter is nostalgia. "I forgive you," I said. Looking into his eyes. "Really? Because holding a grudge would be continuing to carry you, but forget? No. You are a constant reminder of everything I overcame. And honestly, I'm grateful for that." He tried to outline a reaction, but didn't have the strength. He just nodded with a minimal nod, almost imperceptible. "Good luck, Armando. I hope that one day you can look back and feel a bit of shame for what you did." I left the store without buying anything. Outside, the world went on. People laughed, the windows shone, and my phone beeped with a new order from the boutique. I smiled. I adjusted the strap of my bag on my shoulder and kept walking, without looking back. Because honestly, those who live in the past belong in a museum. And Armando, well, he was just a dusty piece that I no longer visited. Life has an ironic and an absolutely wonderful way of rewarding those who don't take revenge with anger, but with results. Months after that pathetic reunion, my boutique was no longer just a charming store in the city center. It became a reference. We expanded, opened a second unit in an upscale neighborhood, and I created my own line of scarves printed with phrases of overcoming. One of them went viral. It read, "You didn't break me. You freed me." I started receiving invitations to events, fairs, interviews. Women from various cities wanted to hear my story, and I told it, without naming names, how I started from scratch after financial and emotional betrayal, how I transformed pain into profit, anger into strategy, humiliation into strength. In one of these interviews, Liv, they asked me, "And do you regret anything?" I smiled, took a deep breath, only not believing in myself sooner. The audience applauded. The video hit more than 2 million views in a few days. I was called to lecture on female financial independence at universities, cultural centers, TV shows. Meanwhile, Armando? Well, reliable sources and discreetly well-informed told me that he was evicted from the apartment where he was living for non-payment. The car, which he used to try to maintain his image, was repossessed for default. The dramatic messages he used to send were replaced by silence. No more apologies, no new attacks. I think finally, he understood that whoever digs their own hole, sooner or later drowns in what they built. And me? I was living the best phase of my life. On the night of my 40th birthday, I sat with my closest friends at an elegant restaurant with a view of the city that I reconquered with my own hands. We laughed loudly, without guilt, each with her glass of sparkling wine, celebrating not only my story, but all women who managed to rise even when they tried to push them to the bottom of the well. One of them raised her glass and said, "We should toast to well-executed revenge." But I corrected her. "No, let's toast to freedom, because revenge is temporary, but being free, that's priceless." We toasted, we laughed, and I closed my eyes for a moment. There was no more pain, no more fear, just an entire future ahead. And this time, it was all mine. Did you like the story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Subscribe to the channel to help, and see you next time.